I knew something was off the moment he called me Ace. Ace, he drawled, with that slick, overfamiliar tone that always signaled trouble. You've really knocked it out of the park this quarter. I stood there in his sprawling corner office, the aroma of my chai latte still warm in my hand, my heart pounding a rhythm between a sprint and an emergency. Outside, the open-plan marketing floor buzzed with its usual chaos. Liam from Product was loudly brainstorming about the Q3 launch. Olivia was trying to fix a persistent printer jam, but in here, it was unnaturally quiet, too smooth. He never complimented unless he was about to orchestrate a major setback. For the last 8 months, I'd eaten, slept, and breathed for one colossal client. Zenith Innovations, a cold lead I'd found on an old industry mailing list. I first called them during a torrential downpour on a Tuesday in March, battling a nasty head cold while my daughter was home with a fever. I spent weekends polishing their campaign proposals, answering emails at midnight. They didn't even like us at first, but I managed to win them over. I won over Mr. Sterling Blackwood, the kind of old-school tech CEO who still used a flip phone and ended emails with respectfully. Now, we were there, a $20 million contract ready, legal approval secured, just awaiting final onboarding by Friday. My commission was 7%. I'd done the math at least 50 times, as if I couldn't quite believe it myself. $1.4 million before taxes, certainly, but still, it was liberation money. Enough to pay off my student loans and finally breathe easy. And then he appeared, Victor Thorne, VP of Sales Strategy, also known as the Deal Wrecker. Commander tall, perfectly coiffed hair, a smile like a toothpaste ad, and the cunning of a fox in a bespoke suit. He had a predictable routine. Let top performers land monumental accounts, then cut them off right before the payout, citing some vague corporate excuse. Restructuring, resource reallocation, leadership synergy. Last year, he did it to David. David was let go the day before his Alpha Corp bonus hit. 2 months later, David was driving for a rideshare service in Austin. The company blamed market shifts. I told myself it wouldn't happen to me. I kept my head down, my metrics high, my observations to myself. Still, I noticed the warning signs. My access to the client portal became glitchy 2 weeks ago. System update, it said. The presentation I sent Mr. Blackwood mysteriously vanished from our shared drive, twice. Then last Friday, I overheard Victor in the break room, talking to Brenda from HR, laughing. They went silent when I walked in, claiming they were planning the annual company picnic. It was late July. Deep down, in my exhausted bones, I knew. But I also desperately needed to believe it wouldn't happen. Not this time. Not after everything I'd invested. So I doubled down, reconfirming with Zenith Innovations, sending them updated impact projections, guiding Mr. Blackwood through their intricate internal review process. I even brought in fresh donuts for the team during our final review call. Mr. Blackwood's assistant remarked that I was the only vendor who treated them like actual people. He grew quiet. Too quiet. No, let's prepare for post-closure strategy. No congratulations on reaching the finish line. Just that unsettling grin he wore when he was sharpening his axe. This morning, I arrived early. I wore the charcoal gray suit I reserved for major closings and solemn occasions. My inbox held one unread message. Subject: Quick sync, 9:12 a.m. Victor's office. The body of the email was brief. Just a quick chat, no pressure, bring nothing, followed by a smiley face. No attachments, no agenda. That's when I knew, and yet I still showed up, because that's what women like me do. We show up, even when we know they're about to light a match. I walked past the receptionist, who offered me that empathetic glance you learn to recognize after a decade in the corporate world. I walked past the break room where someone had already scrawled Stella's 20 Melcine kill shot on the whiteboard. I knocked once and entered without waiting. Victor stood up. Brenda from HR was there. He said it again, Ace. That's when my stomach dropped and stayed there. He gestured toward the chair across from his desk, as if we were about to enjoy lattes and brainstorm Q4 initiatives. I sat. My hands didn't tremble, not yet. Brenda, from compliance, the same woman who once called me a phenomenal closer over after-work drinks, sat to the side, lips tightly pressed, a manila folder on her lap like a loaded weapon. Victor steepled his fingers, his smile still artificial. First off, I want to say this has nothing to do with your performance. There it was. My lungs forgot how to expand. Brenda slid the folder across the table as if presenting a menu at a wake. Your role is being eliminated, she stated calmly, scripted, as if they had rehearsed it. Effective immediately. This is part of a broader departmental realignment. I stared at them, waiting for the rest, for the part where they'd admit it was temporary, that I'd be shifted into a new position, or even that I'd be offered a dignified severance package. But there was only silence. I waited, waiting for myself to speak. Victor leaned in. This wasn't an easy decision. You've made genuine contributions, truly. But with our evolving priorities, we're optimizing for operational fluidity. I wanted to laugh. Operational fluidity? He was firing me with corporate jargon. The folder in front of me bore my name in 12-point Arial. Inside, an NDA, a waiver, and one paragraph about severance. 2 weeks of pay, no bonus, no commission, not a single cent of it. The Zenith Innovations deal hadn't officially closed yet. Onboarding was scheduled for tomorrow. Technically, the funds hadn't cleared, so legally, they owed me nothing. Ethically, that was an entirely different narrative. You're welcome to collect your things, Brenda offered softly. Your laptop and phone are being remotely decommissioned. We've already revoked your access to company systems, effective 30 minutes ago. Of course, they had. Am I being escorted out? I asked, my voice thin and sharp. Brenda blinked. Only if you prefer. I didn't answer. I stood, took the folder, and left the pen. Victor stood, both hands extended, as if we had just concluded a pleasant golf match. I looked at his hands, then at him. You knew I was closing that deal, I stated. He tilted his head. We make these decisions weeks in advance, Stella. This is just unfortunate timing. Right, and the Tooth Fairy pays out in cryptocurrencies. I walked out without another word, past the floor where my face still hung on the top performer board, past the cubicles where no one looked up. Even Liam pretended to be engrossed in his Slack messages. At my desk, my belongings were already boxed. Someone had peeled off my name tag. I opened the box. My laptop was gone, my phone gone. Just a few stale granola bars, a broken mechanical pencil, and one blue folder I used for personal notes. I took that, leaving the rest. As I walked toward the elevator, I passed the break room again. The whiteboard message was still there. Stella's 20 Banwamas kill shot. Someone had added a crude little tombstone next to it. My name crossed out. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in. The doors closed on everything. Victor's smirk, Brenda's folder, the whole farcical company. My personal phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look. Not yet. I wanted to fully experience the descent. The silence was immediate and deafening. No Slack pings, no inbox refreshing, no alerts from Mr. Blackwood, no updates from legal. Not even a LinkedIn message from Olivia, who once tearfully confided in me in a fast food parking lot, calling me her career mentor. It was as if I'd never existed. By the time I got home, my badge was deactivated, my work number rerouted, and my access to Salesforce, Google Drive, and Zoom had all vanished into a polite little 403 error. Even the company's Spotify account logged me out mid-commute, right in the middle of a motivational anthem. I laughed at that, a bitter, hollow laugh, as if the universe were in on the joke. I sat in my car for 15 minutes before going inside. My daughter was at school. My husband, ex-husband technically, was 2 states away, remarried to a woman who taught yoga and practiced spiritual healing. I had the place to myself. Just me, the leftover coffee in my travel mug, and a mind desperately trying to make sense of what had just happened. I opened my personal laptop, reflexively clicked Gmail. Nothing from Mr. Blackwood. Nothing from anyone. A few spammy newsletters, a shipping update from an online retailer. No one had reached out. Not a single person. I texted Olivia. Me. You okay? Nothing. Me. Did you know? Still nothing. I checked LinkedIn. Her status was green, active. She just wasn't communicating. It hit me like ice water. They'd been warned. HR doesn't execute a termination like that without ensuring a leak-proof perimeter. My realignment had been staged like a Broadway production, and I was the only one without a script. The others had moved on without a second thought. The same people who signed my birthday cards, who cheered when I hit quota. Cowards, every single one of them. I pulled the blue folder from my bag. It was the only thing they hadn't confiscated, primarily because it looked like nothing special. But inside were my genuine notes. Handwritten account details from the Zenith Innovations meetings, Mr. Blackwood's personal preferences, procurement timelines, even a napkin sketch of their onboarding process we doodled during a steak dinner in Dallas. Buried in the stack was my original employment agreement, the copy from 4 years ago, before they digitized everything. I flipped through it with autopilot fingers, not even sure what I was looking for. Proof I wasn't crazy? Ammunition for a lawsuit I couldn't afford? Then I saw it. Page 17, Section 8.3, a highlight mark I barely remembered making. In the event that designated key personnel are removed from the project without prior client approval, the client reserves the right to void the agreement in full without penalty. I blinked. Read it again. It was in plain English, not the usual legal jargon that makes your eyes glaze over. Key personnel. That was me. It had been an unusual clause, even back then. Mr. Blackwood had insisted, I don't do bait and switches. If I'm buying from you, I want you there. At the time, I thought it was flattering. Now, it was a ticking time bomb, and Victor had just pulled the pin. My brain scrambled to timeline the damage. Had the contract been signed? Had the money cleared? Was legal quick enough to work around that clause? Or was Mr. Blackwood already making calls? I checked my inbox again. Still nothing. But somewhere in the quiet hum of my living room, past the dog-eared contract, past the profound sense of betrayal, I felt something shift. Not grief, not panic. A flicker, sharp, bright, clean, like a scalpel. They had just bet $20 million that I wouldn't matter, and I had just found the clause that said otherwise. Subject line, you okay? That was it. No greeting, no signature, just a 6-character subject line from Mr. Blackwood's Director of Operations, Chris Green, sent straight to my personal Gmail. The same Gmail I hadn't used for work correspondence since 2019, the one buried in the footer of my personal website I barely maintained. The timestamp read 6:12 a.m. I stared at it for a long moment, my coffee long cold in my hand, the room still pitch black except for the harsh glow of my screen. He knew. Somehow, he knew. I clicked it open. We were expecting you on the onboarding call this morning. Mr. Blackwood's asking where you are. Please advise. That was all. No punctuation, no panic, no legal CCs. Just concern wrapped in corporate formality. Mr. Blackwood was asking where I was because I was supposed to be there, because the deal was still active, because Victor hadn't told them. I read it again, slower this time. Mr. Blackwood's asking where you are. It took everything not to scream into a throw pillow. I tapped out a reply with fingers stiff from tension. Hi, Chris. Apologies for the delay. I've recently parted ways with my former employer and will not be present for today's onboarding. I'm not at liberty to disclose details, but please feel free to direct any relevant inquiries to their legal team. Stella. I stared at it. Was that too cold? Too vague? Should I have added a thank you? Darn it. I hit send. The reply came 5 minutes later. No delay, no deliberation. Just one sentence. This violates the clause. We're canceling. I sat back, hands still hovering over the mouse. Everything stilled. Outside, a sanitation truck slammed a dumpster like it was applauding for me. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's dog started barking. The hum of my refrigerator was suddenly deafening, but inside, silence. White hot, sharp as ice. Freaking Chris, knew. The clause wasn't some forgotten legal footnote, it was an active, enforceable term. And Victor? Victor had walked right over it, swinging his axe like a cartoon villain. And now $20 million was about to evaporate because of me, because of them. My breath came out shaky. I looked down and realized my left hand was trembling against the table. Not from fear, not from nerves, but from restraint. Every molecule in me wanted to scream, to call Victor and blast that one-sentence email through his teeth. But I didn't. I just sat there, jaw clenched, riding the seismic shift of what was about to come. They thought I'd go quietly. They thought I'd fade like David, a casualty of realignment, one less line item before bonus season. They didn't count on Chris. They didn't count on that clause. And they sure as hell didn't count on me sitting here, staring at the first crack in their perfect little wall. I didn't reply, didn't forward the email, didn't do a thing. Just sat in the dark, my silence watching the spark catch fire. The first sign came at 9:17 a.m. A LinkedIn notification. Victor viewed my profile. 2 minutes later, another. Brenda from HR. Then George from legal. Then some guy in finance I'd never met, who once mocked me for putting oat milk in my coffee. Panic was setting in. By noon, I got the email, a desperate, chirpy little thing from Brenda. Subject: Let's reconnect. Hi Stella, we wanted to reach out regarding a potential transitional opportunity to continue supporting the Zenith Innovations account during this critical phase. It would be a short-term consulting role with a competitive hourly rate. Let's hop on a call to discuss ASAP. Warmly, Brenda. They had no idea that critical phase was already ashes and smoke. I didn't reply, just stared at her emoji-laden subject line and sipped my coffee. A friend from accounting, bless her loyal, coffee-stained heart, texted me under the radar. All-hands meeting happening now. CFO's having a coronary. They baked Zenith into the Q3 guidance. Call slides are already with investors. Victor's pretending nothing happened. Legal's scrambling. She added a gif of a dumpster fire rolling down a hill. I almost choked laughing. That's when the messages started coming in. Subtle, quiet, indirect. A recruiter from a firm I'd never worked with. Heard you might be in transition? Want to grab coffee? A VP from a partner vendor. Stella, just checking in. Anything you need, let us know. We trust you. Even Mr. Blackwood pinged me. Not via Chris this time, but him personally. Just a thumbs-up emoji and the message, keep me posted. Translation: We're still on, just not with them. I printed the clause from my old contract, laid it on my kitchen table, and ran my fingers over the words like they were scripture. My inbox was starting to fill with backdoor HR offers, friendly outreach from legal, and even one laughable note from Victor. Hey Ace, any chance we could chat about the Zenith Innovations transition? No pressure, just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. The audacity of that man could have powered a small city. Meanwhile, I was already 3 steps ahead. I'd Googled LLC filings in my state, picked a name, Pinnacle Strategies. Because sometimes success deserves to wear a suit. Chris and I exchanged exactly 5 texts, each precise, surgical. The last one. Chris. Can I loop in our GC to draft something? Me. Quietly. I'm not ready to be loud. There was something deeply satisfying about it all. Watching them flail from my quiet kitchen, in yoga pants, hair unbrushed, coffee in one hand, nuclear detonation in the other. Their entire earnings report torched, their forecasts fiction, and they couldn't even admit what happened, because what would they say? We tried to cheat our top performer out of her rightful commission and tanked a $20 million deal in the process. Not exactly an investor-friendly narrative. So they bluffed, sent emails, made phone calls. Legal tried to argue that key personnel didn't mean me. I sent back a single-page termination letter, no elaboration, just 2 words underlined. Clause breached. The flame I'd felt earlier, it was a slow, steady burn now, controlled, contained. I wasn't chasing apologies, I wasn't suing, I wasn't shouting to LinkedIn like some wounded martyr. I was building. And while they scrambled to explain the sudden absence of a deal they'd already counted, I was on the phone with a lawyer, drafting articles of incorporation. By the time their PR team spun up a press release about strategic shifts in enterprise partnerships, I'd already reserved the domain name. They thought my silence meant surrender, but silence is just another language, and mine said, "Watch your freaking back." By the following Tuesday, the cracks had gone public, tiny hairline fissures spidering through their spotless facade. It started with a delay. One of our mid-tier clients, Nexus Corp, had a renewal scheduled for Monday, auto-approved every year like clockwork. Nothing flashy, just a $2.4 million retention, but dependable, reliable, until suddenly it wasn't. Nexus is dragging their feet, a former colleague texted me from a burner WhatsApp. They asked who was managing their account now. No one had an answer. The next day, Auratech, another steady client, pushed their Q3 service expansion into internal review, which is code for, "We smelled smoke, and we're not walking into the building yet." The whisper network had begun, and then came the leak. I was eating leftover pad thai straight from the carton when the link landed in my inbox. No subject line, just a Glassdoor URL and a winking emoji. I clicked. Title: Beware the Commission Cliff. Rating: 1 star. If you're a top performer in enterprise sales, don't get too comfortable. Management has a pattern. Let you close the big fish, then realign your role before the commission date. Happened to 2 reps I knew personally. One was Stella. Yes, that Stella. She built the Zenith Innovations deal solo. They canned her the day before it closed. She was the rainmaker. They let her walk. Ask yourself, who's next? No name, no date, no way to trace it, but everyone knew. By Thursday, my LinkedIn DMs were a zoo. Recruiters, reporters, even former rivals. One message stood out. "I'm at a different firm now. When I told our CRO what happened to you, he said, 'That's not a company, it's a casino.' I just laughed. Thought you'd appreciate that." I did. Meanwhile, Pinnacle Strategies was quietly becoming real. LLC papers filed, EIN secured, a tiny office space leased under an alias for now, just a room with Wi-Fi and a whiteboard, but it felt like a cathedral. I texted Chris, "We're ready when you are." Mr. Blackwood signed off. "We'll be transferring vendor approval next week." I replied, "Not yet. Let them stew," because I wasn't done watching. Every delayed renewal, every awkward client call, every time Victor fumbled through an investor Q&A, tap dancing around a missing $20 million, it fueled me. I didn't need to scream. The ecosystem was doing it for me. One of the newer SDRs, some bright-eyed kid named Tyler, apparently asked in a team meeting, "Hey, why did Stella leave?" Only for the room to go stone dead. His manager said, "We don't comment on personnel shifts." Yeah, because commenting would require a lie they could all agree on. And the board, still silent, watching too, probably waiting to see if the bleeding stopped. It wouldn't. Not this time. I had no need to reach out, no need to correct the record. Every whisper tightened the noose, and I was just getting started, planning, plotting, building, quietly. Because revenge this precise doesn't roar. It waits. The announcement hit like a thunderclap in a marble cathedral. Loud, deliberate, and echoing long after the words stopped. Zenith Innovations is proud to partner with Pinnacle Strategies, led by Stella Hayes, to execute our digital infrastructure transformation project. This marks a new chapter in our commitment to vendor transparency, ethical contracting, and personalized enterprise collaboration. No fluff, no apologies, no mention of the past. Just facts, forward motion, and my name in the headline. It dropped on a Wednesday at 10:04 a.m., a time I chose on purpose, midweek, mid-morning, mid-hell, for anyone trying to pretend they weren't bleeding. Victor had just finished the Q3S investor call. I pictured him in his office, half sweating through his designer shirt, trying to smile through earnings gymnastics when the email pinged his inbox. The new deal? Cleaner, better, 5-year term, same $20 million scope, with an additional equity option built in should Pinnacle hit performance metrics in the first 18 months. And the clause? Oh, it was still there, but now it read, in the event Stella Hayes is removed from this agreement without her written consent, Zenith Innovations reserves the right to void the contract in full. My name wasn't just in the email, it was in the legal language. The ink on the contract was still drying when Chris sent a bottle of bourbon to my office, an aged single malt, my favorite, and a note, to the real vendor of record. Meanwhile, my old company's PR team fumbled together a panic-stricken press release, full of vague gestures toward market realignments, new verticals, and diversified delivery structures. It read like a deflection written by a man holding a lit match above a pile of dry kindling. No mention of Zenith Innovations. No mention of me. But the silence was loud. Investors noticed. A few quiet sell-offs. Internal Slack channels leaked to social media with screenshots of employees asking, wait, are we pretending the $20 million contract didn't exist? By Friday, I'd already signed 2 more exploratory NDAs with firms who'd been watching, eager to see if the woman they fired for being too expensive could build something more valuable on her own. And me? I was breathing again. Not deep gulps, not yet, but real ones, no longer rationed between quotas and performance reviews and Victor's crocodile grins. I sat in my new space, just me, a desk, a corkboard with 2 pinned words. Never forget. Because I wouldn't. I wouldn't forget the fluorescent conference room where Brenda slid the folder across the table like it wasn't soaked in my blood. I wouldn't forget Victor's smug ace or the silence from teammates who vanished like ghosts. And I wouldn't forget that they thought my value expired before the wire cleared. But now every dollar in that deal was mine. Every win, every clause, every inch of leverage. I built it. No middleman, no VP siphoning off my worth like a leech in a designer suit. They thought they killed the deal when they fired me. What they did was set it free. And me? I was just warming up. The email arrived with all the gravity of a funeral bell. Subject, request for discussion, board inquiry. Sender, Eleanor Vance, EVP, Corporate Strategy. One of the last executives I didn't despise. No greeting, just the sentence. They want to talk. I stared at it, my spoon frozen halfway to my mouth, cereal turning to mush. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even an invitation. It was what the corporate world sends instead of flowers after a slow-motion beheading. Turns out, you can only hemorrhage $20 million and lose one of your flagship clients so discreetly before the board notices the stench. And once they did, everything accelerated. I hadn't even needed to push. The ecosystem did it for me. First came the whispers. The board was blindsided. Zenith Innovations had been a cornerstone of the company's projected pivot into tech logistics. The PR team's frantic spinning hadn't worked. The investor community wasn't stupid. They saw through the jargon, the missing revenue, the sudden absence of a key expansion partner. And when Glassdoor reviews and anonymous tip-offs started lining up with revenue gaps, the house of cards wobbled, then it cracked. An audit was launched, quietly at first, then less so. Internal controls, sales documentation, HR terminations. Legal began pulling separation records. Someone floated the word retaliatory dismissal in a finance call. Suddenly, Victor wasn't wearing ties in his Zoom meetings anymore. And then came the board. They pulled him in. Multiple directors, not a friendly chat, but a review. They grilled him for an hour, according to someone 2 doors down. His voice got higher, defensive. His only excuse, communication breakdown. That was it. His fallback for why the most high-profile deal of the year walked out the door and reappeared under my name in front of God and LinkedIn. He tried to spin it like I'd been planning an exit all along, that I'd maneuvered around the organization to undermine the process. But when they asked for proof, emails, policy breaches, even a whisper of misconduct, he had nothing, because I'd played it clean. No backdoor sabotage, no screenshots, no violations. I just let them implode. Word is, the CFO was livid. This wasn't a misstep, she said, according to another Slack leak. This was a deliberate decapitation of our top asset. Meanwhile, Eleanor's message sat in my inbox. They want to talk. I replied 2 hours later with the same poise I'd adopted since this began. Let me know when I have availability Thursday afternoon. Simple, neutral, in control. I didn't tell Chris. I didn't tell Mr. Blackwood. I didn't need to, because this wasn't about groveling or reopening burned bridges. This was about them trying to climb out of a hole they dug with diamond-studded shovels. And me? I was already on solid ground. There was a quiet joy in it, not loud or petty, not champagne-popping vindication, just the calm of knowing the tide had fully turned. I didn't need revenge headlines. I was the headline. The boardroom was nothing like the one they used to herd us into at my old job. No flickering fluorescents, no stale pastries in plastic wrap, no passive-aggressive printouts about expense reports stapled to the wall. This one was clean, sleek, walnut paneling, a single heavy table that smelled like polish and victory, and silence. The good kind, the kind that means people are listening, not scheming. Chris stood at the head of the table, flanked by Mr. Blackwood and their general counsel. They didn't rise when I entered. They didn't need to. This wasn't about performance reviews or half-baked growth frameworks. This was about terms. On the table was the new deal, the real deal, the one that started with the wreckage of a broken clause and ended here, with my name above the signature line and a line item called equity vesting, 12%, in bold font. I didn't smile. Not yet. Mr. Blackwood nodded once. We cleaned up the last clause, he said. No more confusion, no substitutions. You're the lead. Period. I scanned the contract like I was skimming a menu, not locking in a multi-million-dollar partnership. I already knew the terms. I'd written half of them myself. Still, I let them wait. Power is a funny thing. You feel it most when you don't have to flex it. Then my phone buzzed. I didn't need to look at the screen. I knew that ringtone, the custom one I made years ago, just to mock him. Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. It had always made me laugh. Now it made me pause. I stood, stepped to the corner of the room, and answered quietly. Hello? A beat, then Victor's voice, brittle and breathy, like a salesman whose pitch finally shattered. Stella, look, I know things got out of hand. There were layers, decisions above me. I think we should talk. Not as enemies, as colleagues. I was wrong to not handle things better. Another beat. I could hear papers rustling, maybe a glass being poured. His nervous tics hadn't changed. We can find a way to make this right. Clean slate, you and I. I didn't let him finish. I kept my voice steady, smooth. You should have paid the commission. And then I hung up. No explanation, no dramatics, just truth. When I turned back, Chris raised an eyebrow. "All good?" he asked. I nodded. "He won't be a problem." Mr. Blackwood chuckled, just once, then slid the pen across the table. I signed. In that moment, something unlatched in my chest. Not release, not forgiveness. Sovereignty. I'd spent a decade walking tightropes in rooms where I was always second-guessed, always maneuvered around, always a bonus away from erasure. Not anymore. Now, I was the clause. We shook hands, not as vendor and client, but as partners, real ones. By the time I stepped outside, the sun was slicing clean through the late afternoon haze. A breeze hit just right, like closure in motion. My phone buzzed again, this time with a push alert. 20M. Deal. Collapse. Triggers. Internal shakeup. VP resigns amid investigation. No name, but everyone knew. I silenced the notification, slid the phone into my bag, and walked on. This story teaches us a powerful lesson. Always know your worth and understand the fine print. Stella's unwavering dedication and keen eye for detail, particularly her foresight in noting a critical clause in her contract, ultimately became her greatest strength. Even when faced with betrayal and corporate injustice, she refused to be a victim. Instead, she leveraged her knowledge and resilience to not only recover what was rightfully hers, but to build something far greater. The positive message here is one of empowerment and self-reliance. Challenges and setbacks are inevitable, but they don't define us. What defines us is how we respond. Stella's journey reminds us that integrity, foresight, and a quiet determination can turn moments of defeat into opportunities for unprecedented growth and success. Trust your instincts, stand firm in your principles, and remember that sometimes the most profound victories are won not by shouting, but by meticulously building your own path forward. You are the architect of your destiny, and your true value cannot be dictated or diminished by others.